Muammar Gaddafi, the former ruler of Libya, was one of the most enigmatic and controversial figures in modern history. For more than 4 decades, he held an iron grip on his nation, proclaiming himself the brotherly leader and guide of the revolution. But what was the reality behind this? Was it true? Or was it just a cover-up to do as he wished? Let's find out. Muammar Gaddafi was born on June 7, 1942, in a Bedouin tent near Sirte, a coastal city in Libya. His family was of humble origins, and he was one of several children. Early on, Gaddafi was exposed to the harsh realities of life in the desert, which instilled in him a sense of toughness and resourcefulness. These formative years in the austere surroundings of the desert had a profound impact on his character and future leadership style. Gaddafi attended the Benghazi Military Academy and later traveled to the United Kingdom for further military training. During his time abroad, he developed a deep-seated resentment toward Western colonial powers, particularly the British and French. These feelings of anti-imperialism would go on to shape his political ideology. Upon returning to Libya, Gaddafi became involved in a clandestine group of young officers who were dissatisfied with the rule of King Idris I. On September 1, 1969, they successfully carried out a coup d'état, overthrowing the monarchy and ushering in a new era in Libya. Gaddafi assumed the position of chairman of the Revolutionary Command Council, marking the beginning of his long and complex rule. One of Gaddafi's most notable contributions to political thought was his authorship of the Green Book. Published in the late 1970s, it outlined his vision of a utopian society governed by the principles of direct democracy and people's power. In the Green Book, Gaddafi rejected traditional Western-style representative democracy, asserting that it was inherently flawed and corrupt. Instead, he proposed a system of governance he called the Jamahiriya, which means state of the masses. In the Jamahiriya, Gaddafi abolished political parties and established a People's Congresses system where ordinary citizens were meant to participate directly in decision-making. While the concept was presented as a move towards greater popular participation, in practice, Gaddafi retained absolute control over the state. He never listened to or cared about the opinions of the ordinary citizens. The Green Book's ideas would serve as the ideological underpinning for his regime for decades to come. Gaddafi was a staunch advocate of Pan-Africanism, a political and social movement that aimed to promote unity and solidarity among African nations. He saw himself as a champion of African liberation and often provided support to various rebel movements across the continent, including the African National Congress in South Africa and the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola. Moreover, Gaddafi was a vocal critic of Western imperialism in Africa and consistently called for the establishment of an African Union, a continental organization that would promote self-sufficiency and independence. He also proposed the creation of a single African currency and a unified military force. These ideas, though well-intentioned on the surface, often led to tensions with other African leaders and raised suspicions about his ultimate motives. Under Gaddafi's rule, Libya experienced significant economic changes. In 1970, he nationalized the country's oil industry, taking control of the vast oil reserves that would become the lifeblood of his regime. He used oil revenues to fund ambitious infrastructure projects, provide free healthcare and education to Libyans, and initiate a variety of social programs. These policies led to improved living standards for many Libyans. However, Gaddafi's economic policies also had downsides. The centralized, state-controlled economy hindered innovation and economic diversification, leaving Libya heavily dependent on oil exports. Additionally, the lack of transparency and accountability in the management of state resources contributed to widespread corruption. Despite the apparent prosperity, economic disparities persisted. Gaddafi's relationship with the international community was marked by a series of controversies and shifting alliances. At times, he portrayed himself as a champion of Africa, challenging Western dominance and advocating for the rights of developing nations. However, his actions often contradicted his rhetoric. In 2003, Gaddafi took a surprising turn by renouncing Libya's pursuit of weapons of mass destruction and opening up to the West. This marked the beginning of a process of rapprochement with the international community. Libya's cooperation with Western powers led to the lifting of sanctions and increased diplomatic engagement. However, this shift also faced criticism from those who viewed it as a betrayal of his earlier anti-imperialist stances. Muammar Gaddafi's long rule over Libya was marked by numerous controversies and international incidents. He was always surrounded by controversies not just restricted to Libya but internationally as well. Some of the most fired controversies surrounding him were Lockerbie bombing, repression and human rights abuses, support for terrorism, and nuclear and chemical weapons programs. The Arab Spring, a series of protests and uprisings across the Arab world in 2011, would prove to be the catalyst for the end of Gaddafi's rule. Inspired by the success of other uprisings in the region, Libyan rebels took to the streets demanding political reform and an end to Gaddafi's autocratic regime. What began as a popular protest movement escalated into a full-scale civil war, with Gaddafi fiercely resisting the rebel forces. The international community became involved, with a NATO-led coalition providing air support to the rebels. After months of fighting and mounting pressure, Gaddafi's regime began to crumble. In October 2011, he was captured and killed by rebel forces in his hometown of Sirte, marking the end of his 42-year rule. The fall of Gaddafi's regime led to a power vacuum in Libya, as various factions, militias, and tribal groups vied for control. The country descended into chaos, with ongoing violence, political instability, and humanitarian crises. The once prosperous nation was left in shambles, and it became clear that Gaddafi's authoritarian rule had left a deeply fractured and divided society in its wake. Gaddafi's life story, rise to power, and ultimate downfall are a reflection of the complexities and contradictions of political leadership in the modern era. His legacy continues to influence Libya's post-Gaddafi trajectory, as the nation grapples with the challenges of political stability, reconstruction, and national reconciliation. The tale of Muammar Gaddafi serves as a reminder of the intricate interplay between ideology, power, and the enduring impact of leadership on a nation and its people. Please provide your comments below, it will help us improve our future videos, and also subscribe to our channel if you have already not. Thanks for watching.